October country, that country where it is always turning late in the year, that country where the hills are fog and the rivers are mists, where noons go quickly, dusks and twilights linger, and midnights stay, that country composed in the main of cellars, sub-cellars, coal bins, closets, attics, and pantries faced away from the sun, that country whose people are autumn people, thinking only autumn thoughts, whose people passing at night on the empty walks sound like rain. There was an old woman. "There's no leaf arguing. I got my mind fixed. Run along with your silly wicker basket. Land, where you ever get notions like that? You just get out of here. Don't bother me. I got my tatting and knitting to do, and no never minds about tall, dark gentlemen with fangled ideas." The tall, dark young man stood quietly, not moving. Aunt Tildy hurried on with her talk. "You heard what I said. If you got a mind to talk to me, well, you can talk. But meantime, I hope you don't mind if I pour myself coffee. There, if you'd be more polite, I'd offer you some. But you jump in here high and mighty, and you never rapped on the door or nothing. You think you own the place." Aunt Tildy fussed with her lap. "Now, you made me lose count. I'm making myself a comforter. These winters get on mighty chill, and it ain't fittin' for a lady with bones like rice paper to be settin' in a drafty old house without warmin' herself." The tall, dark man sat down. "That's an antique chair, so be gentle," warned Aunt Tildy. "Start again. Tellin' me things you got to tell. I'll listen respectful, but keep your voice in your shoes and stop staring at me with funny lights in your eyes. Land, it gives me the collywobbles." The bone porcelain flowered clock on the mantel finished chiming 3. Out in the hall, grouped around the wicker basket, 4 men waited quietly, as if they were frozen. "Now about that wicker basket," Aunt Tildy said. "It's past 6 feet long, and by the look, it ain't laundry. And those 4 men you walked in with, you don't need them to carry that basket. Why, it's light as thistles, eh?" The dark young man was leaning forward on the antique chair. Something in his face suggested the basket wouldn't be so light after a while. "Pshaw!" Aunt Tildy mused. "Where have I seen a wicker like that before? Seems it was only a couple of years ago, seems to me. Oh, now I remember. It was when Mrs. Dwyer passed away next door." Aunt Tildy set her coffee cup down sternly. "So that's what you're up to. I thought you were working to sell me something. You just sit there until my little Emily trounces home from college this afternoon. I wrote her a note last week, not admitting, of course, that I wasn't feeling quite ripe and pert, but sort of hinting I want to see her again. It's been a good many weeks, her living in New York and all, almost like my own daughter Emily is. Now, she'll take care of you, young man. She'll shoo you out in this parlor so quick I'll—" The dark young man looked at Aunt Tildy as if she were tired. "No, I'm not," she snapped. He weaved back and forth on the chair, half shutting his eyes, resting himself. "Oh, wouldn't she like to rest too?" he seemed to murmur. "Rest, nice rest. Great sons of Goshen and Gilbury Dyke! I got 100 comforters, 200 sweaters, and 600 potholders in these fingers. No matter, they're skinny. You run off. Come back when I'm done. Maybe I'll talk to you." Aunt Tildy shifted subjects. "Let me tell you about Emily, my sweet fair child." Aunt Tildy nodded thoughtfully. "Emily with hair like yellow corn tassels, just as soft and fine. I well remember the day her mother died 20 years ago, leaving Emily to my house. That's why I'm mad at you and your wickers and such goings-on. Who ever heard of people dying for any good cause? Young man, I don't like it. Why, I remember—" Aunt Tildy paused. A brief pain of memory touched her heart. 25 years back, her father's voice trembled in the late afternoon. "Tildy," he whispered, "what you going to do in life? The way you act, men don't walk much with you. You kiss and skedaddle. Why won't you settle down, marry, raise children?" "Papa," Tildy shouted back at him, "I like laughing and playing and singing, and I'm not the marrying kind. I can't find a man with my philosophy, Papa." "What philosophy's that?" "That death is ridiculous. It run off with Mama when we needed her most. You call that intelligent?" Papa's eyes got wet and gray and bleak. "You're always right, Tildy. But what can we do? Death comes to everybody." "Fight!" she cried. Strike it below the belt. Don't believe in it. Can't be done, Papa said sadly. We all stand alone in the world. There's got to be a change sometime, Papa. I'm starting my own philosophy here and now. Why, it's silly people live a couple of years and are shoved like wet seeds in a hole. But nothing sprouts. What good do they do? Lay there a million years, helping no one most of the time. Most of them fine, nice, neat people, or at least trying. But Papa wasn't listening. He bleached out, faded away like a photo left lying in the sun. She tried to talk him out of it, but he passed on. Anyway, she spun about and ran. She couldn't stay on once he was cold, for his coldness denied her philosophy. She didn't attend his burial, she didn't do anything, but set up this antique shop on the front of an old house and live alone for years, that is, until Emily came. Tildy didn't want to take the girl in. Why? Because Emily believed in dying, but her mother was an old friend and Tildy had promised help. Emily, continued Aunt Tilly to the man in black, was the first to live in this house with me in all the years. I never got married. I feared the idea of living with a man 30 years, and then have him die on me. It'd shake my convictions like a house of cards. I shied off from the world. I screamed at people if they so much as mentioned death. The young man listened patiently, politely. Then he lifted his hand. He seemed to know everything, with the dark, cold shining of his eyes. Before she opened her mouth, he knew about her in World War II, when she shut off her radio forever and stopped the newspapers and beat a man's head with an umbrella, driving him from her shop when he insisted on describing the invasion beaches and long, slow tides of the dead drifting under the silent urgings of the moon. Yet the young dark man from the antique rocker, he knew how Aunt Tildy had stuck her nice old phonographs record. Harry Lauder singing Roman and the Gloman, Madame Schumann Henk, and lullabies with no interruptions, no foreign calamities, murders, poisonings, auto accidents, suicides. Music stayed the same each day, every day, so the years ran, while Aunt Tildy tried to teach Emily her philosophy, but Emily's mind was fixed on mortality. She respected Aunt Tildy's way of thinking, however, and never mentioned eternity. All this the young man knew. Aunt Tildy sniffed. How do you know all these things? Well, if you think you can talk me into that silly wicker basket, you're way off the trestle. You lay hands on me, I'll spit right in your face. The young man smiled. Aunt Tildy sniffed again. Don't simper like a sick dog. I'm too old to be made love at. That's all twisted dry like an old tube of paint, and left behind in the years. There was a noise. The mantel clock chimed 3. Aunt Tildy flashed her eyes to it. Strange, hadn't it chimed 3 o'clock just 5 minutes ago? She liked the bone-white clock with gold angels dangling nailed about its numeraled face and its tone like cathedral bells, soft and far away. Are you just going to sit there, young man? He was. Then you won't mind if I take a little cat nap. Now, don't you stir off that chair. Don't come creeping around me. Just going to close my eyes for a spell. That's right, that's right. Nice and quiet, restful time of day. Silence, just the clock ticking away, busy as termites in the wood. Just the old room, smelling of polished mahogany and oiled leather in the Morris chair. The books sitting stiff on the shelves. So nice, nice. You aren't getting up from that chair, are you, mister? Better not. I got one eye open for you. Yes, indeed I have. Oh, so feathery, so drowsy, so deep. Underwater almost. Oh, so nice. Who's that moving around in the dark with my eyes closed? Who's that kissing my cheek? You, Emily? No. Guess it was my thoughts. Only dreaming land. Yes, that's it. Drifting off. Ah! What save? Oh! Wait till I put on my glasses. There. The clock chimed 3 again. Shame. Old clock now. Shame. Have to have you fixed. The young man in the dark suit stood near the door. Aunt Tildy nodded. You leaving so soon, young man? Had to give up, didn't you? Couldn't convince me. No, I'm mule stubborn. Never get me free of this house. So don't bother coming back to try. The old man bowed with slow dignity. He had no intention of coming again, ever. "Fine," declared Aunt Tildy. "I always told Papa I'd win. Why, I'll knit in this window the next 1,000 years. They'll have to chew the boards down around me to get me out." The dark young man twinkled his eyes. "Quit looking like the cat that ate the bird," cried Aunt Tildy. "Get that old fool Wicker away." The four men trod heavily out the front door. Tildy studied the way they handled the empty basket, yet staggered with its weight. "Here now!" She rose in tremulous indignation. "Did you steal my antiques? My books? The clocks? What you got in that wicker?" The dark young man whistled jauntily, turning his back to her, walking along behind the four staggering men. At the door, he pointed to the wicker, offered its lid to Aunt Tildy. In pantomime, he wondered if she would like to open it and gaze inside. "Curious? Me? Pshaw, no, get out!" cried Aunt Tildy. The dark young man tapped his hat onto his head, saluted her crisply. "Goodbye!" Aunt Tildy slammed the door. There. That was better. Gone. Darned fool men, with their maggoty ideas. No, never minds about the wicker. If they stole something, she didn't care, long as they let her alone. "Look," Aunt Tildy smiled. "Here comes Emily, home from college. About time, lovely girl. See how she walks, but land, she looks pale and funny today, walking so slow. I wonder why. Looks worried, she does. Poor girl. I'll just fix some coffee and a tray of cakes." Emily tapped up from the steps. Aunt Tildy, rushing around, could hear the slow, deliberate steps. What ailed the girl? Didn't sound like she was no more spunk than a flute lizard. Like she had no more spunk than a flute lizard. The front door swung wide. Emily stood in the hall, holding the brass doorknob. "Emily!" cried Aunt Tildy. Emily shuffled into the parlor, head down. "Emily, I've been waiting for you. There was the darndest fool men here with a wicker, trying to sell me something I didn't want. Glad you're home. Makes it right cozy." Aunt Tildy realized that for a full minute Emily had been staring. "Emily, what's wrong? Stop staring. Here, I'll bring you a cup of coffee. There. Emily, why are you backing away from me? Emily, stop screaming, child. Don't scream, Emily. Don't. You keep screaming all the way. That way you'll go crazy. Emily, get up off the floor. Get away from that wall. Emily, stop cringing, child. I won't hurt you. Land, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Emily, what's wrong, child?" Emily groaned through her hands over her face. Child, whispered Aunt Tildy. "Here, sip this water, Emily. Sip it, Emily, that's it." Emily widened her eyes and saw something, then shut them, quivering, pulling into herself. Aunt Tildy! Stop that!" Tildy slapped her. "What ails you?" Emily forced herself to look up again. She thrust her fingers out. They vanished inside Aunt Tildy. "What fool notion!" cried Tildy. "Take your hand away. Take it, I say." Emily dropped aside, jerked her head, the golden hair shaking into shiny tremblers. "You're not here, Aunt Tildy. I'm dreaming you're dead. Hush, baby. You can't be here. Land of Goshen, Emily." She took Emily's hand. It passed clean through her. Instantly Aunt Tildy raised straight up, stomping her foot. Why, she cried, "that fibster, that sneak thief." Her thin hands nodded to wiry, hard, pale fists. "That dark fiend. He stole it. He toted it away. He did. Oh, he did. Why, Wrath steamed in her. Pale blue eyes were fire. She sputtered out into an indignant silence. Then she turned to Emily. "Child, get up. I need you." Emily lay quivering. "Part of me's here," declared Aunt Tildy. "By the Lord Harry, what's left will have to do for a bit. Fetch up my bonnet," Emily confessed. "I'm scared." "Certainly. Oh, certainly not of me." "Yes." "Why, I'm no spook. You know me most of your life. Now's no time for snivel-stop. Fetch up your heels, or I'll slap your cheek across your nose." And there we will pause.